Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be painting up another Genestealer Cults character that I'm never going to use in my army, the Benefictus, which apparently at this moment in time is the GSC counter to the Knight spam list. Here are all the paints that I used throughout this project, and when it came to assembly, I decided, you know what, it's simple enough. I'm going to assemble the entire thing and just paint it as such. So no sub-assembly or anything like that. So I shall consult a color wheel to find out what is the best overall color things to use on this model. The cover art already pretty much has half of them, but I can probably go a little further. So to start off with, I'm going to start off with the brain. So with Night Questor Flesh, Bugman's Glow, Cadian Flesh Tone, Pallid Witch Flesh, and Eandan Yellow, we're going to paint the giant brain. First, base coat of Night Questor Flesh all over. I actually watered it down so much that it kind of was a wash, and it filled into the recesses, which perfectly was fine because I needed the deepest recesses to be filled with this color. Then pure Bugman's Glow on the top, not top parts, but the non-deep areas of the brain. I don't know how to describe this. And then with Cadian Flesh Tone, we're going to highlight the top parts of each, I don't know, what are they called, ears or something of the brain. And essentially once that's done, so the colors are a little bit too extreme. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. So I go back with a Night Questor Flesh as a wash, apply it all over to sort of tie the colors together. And now once that is done, I basically go back with Cadian Flesh Tone and re-highlight most of the areas. And then here's what I do. I start adding Pallid Witch Flesh into the Cadian Flesh Tone mix. And then I basically go and highlight the more raised areas of the brain pieces. I don't know, it looks like intestines, go with that, the round parts towards the light or upper area. And I keep doing that. I keep adding more Pallid Witch Flesh into the mix. I re-highlight less and less areas, and then I eventually focus on the corners or the most raised parts here and there. And make sure this paint is pretty smoothed out with water so that it doesn't start to get like cake on. You want it to smoothly layer on. And eventually I use pure Pallid Witch Flesh and do dots here and there of such. Now once I do all that, I then take Eandan Yellow, the Citadel contrast paint, water it down a bit and apply it all over because I kind of wanted to add a yellowish color to the brain, and I didn't know how to do that apart from this. I don't know, how do you want to paint your brain? And then I went back with a bit of Pallid Witch Flesh again and just put little dots here and there in the most raised pointed area things. And then I went back with Night Questor Flesh and another wash and then apply it to the bottom half of his brain to create like some extra shadow in there and stuff. Yeah, and it turned out okay. Now with Eshin Grey, Dawnstone, Corvus Black, and Administrative Grey, we're going to paint the armor. Now the armor on Genestealer Cults is one of the most annoying things to paint. One of the most. Actually, there's a lot of things that they have that's common that's very annoying. But basically, their ribbed armor is just irritating to deal with. So Eshin Grey all over. Dawnstone highlight, except in the deepest, darkest recesses and such. And then once that's done, I'm going to take Corvus Black as a wash and apply it all over. This is going to get into their incredibly annoying ribbed armor. And once that's done, I'll then go back with Dawnstone and re-highlight all the parts, the major flat areas, stuff around the light and stuff. And with a somewhat dry-ish brush, try to do the ribs. This is a process that's done much easier if I'm doing pure speed painting with oils, but when I'm trying to do it with without it, it's really irritating. Then with administrative gray, I then do a final highlight with that, and I am done. Alright, now with Corn Red, Mephiston Red, Troll Slayer Orange, and Luganeth Orange, we're going to paint the cloak next, or the robe. So, essentially, what I'm going to do is first Corn Red all over. Now, I wanted to try something a bit different. So normally I'd like to paint like lines or like texture lines on the cloak and robe and stuff for not super smooth cloaks. But so what I wanted to do this time is I actually did mixes of like Corn Red to Mephiston Red and applied it from the light down, then Mephiston Red. Then what I did was I took Mephiston Red and Troll Slayer Orange, mixed them together-ish, and then applied them from like the light down, so I would have a color transition. Make sure that it's watered down enough so that it goes on smooth so it doesn't cake up. And then I added more Troll Slayer Orange into the mix of Mephiston Red, and I kept adding that on the more raised areas and stuff and building up layers, going from dark to light that way. And it made the lighting and the flow of the cape look pretty good. And so then once that was done, I took pure Troll Slayer Orange, and then I just started doing horizontal lines on the bends of the robe. Yeah, towards the deep insides, there really wasn't that many. And so once I did it all over, I then went with Luganeth Orange and then redid the horizontal lines. I tried to do it within the Troll Slayer Orange lines that I did, and it looked pretty good. I used the Luganeth Orange also there's like one or two sharp folds that are based off like his knees and stuff like that. I used that to highlight or like carve out that appearance. And then once that was done, I actually went back with a bit of Mephiston Red in some of the darker areas and added lines in there. I went back, I didn't show it, but I went back to make sure that it, like the whole thing was textured essentially. And once that was done, I went back with Corn Red and reapplied it on certain areas where there would be more shadow that I might have undone and stuff. So the deep recesses, places where the light wouldn't hit, like under his knee and stuff, certain folds. And then when that was done, I took Rhinox Hide, turned it into a thin wash, and then applied it in the deepest, darkest recesses and where his armor plates and other stuff meet the cloak. And it really added a lot to the lightness by adding that hard, contrasting shadow. And now for the leather, his leather belt and gun holster. And also, I will also use these colors to do his left glove, or she, I don't know, I can't tell. But I do that later. I forget about it and then I do it towards the end, off camera. So with Gorthor Brown, Rhinox Hide, Nightquester Flesh, and Cadian Flesh Tone, we're going to paint the leather. So Gorthor Brown all over. Then Rhinox Hide as a wash all over, but for the belt, because it's so small, I take the Rhinox Hide and I just tap it along the center of the belt, and it like stays there and adds a lot of depth and color. Once that's done, I go back with Gorthor Brown and re-highlight like 90% of everything. Then with Nightquester Flesh for the belt, I highlight the top and bottom edge, and then I do a few slashes in between here and there. And with the gun holster, I highlight the edges, and I also start drawing like X slashes or like lines going from top left to bottom right of the front of the gun holster and stuff like that. And I do the same thing on the other side from top right to bottom left. It looks fine. Then I take Cadian Flesh Tone and I do a fine highlight. You have to have a good brush for this, and make sure the paints are watered down enough so that they flow smoothly. You don't want to cake up anything. And I applied this on the top part of the belt, and then the most raised areas of the gun holster, and then like within some of the lines that I drew for texture on the gun holster. And it came out looking well. It looks new, essentially. I'm going for new stuff. I'm not going for worn. Because worn, it's hard to wrap my mind around that right now. Alright, with Cantor Blue, Calidor Sky, and Temple Guard Blue, and also Corvus Black I added later in the video, we're going to paint the armor, chitin, Genestealer, the actual alien parts of the body. So basically, Cantor Blue all over. Then with Calidor Sky, there's basically three parts. So for the head, we're basically going to do a bunch of lines going from front to back, the tops and edges of his armored head thing. His foot, we're basically covering 90% of everything except the deepest, darkest recesses. His arm, we're painting first the contours, the sharp edges, then the flat areas, and we basically only want like we want to cover sort of 90% of everything. Then, once that's done, I'm going to create a wash of Cantor Blue and apply it all over everything. Just to tone things down and reset. I'm learning how to do this because I don't paint Tyranids that often, and it's very rare. And then with Calidor Sky mixed with Temple Guard Blue, sort of a 1-to-1-ish mix, we're going to then jump and we're going to do hard lines on the top of the head going from front to back, on the edges and stuff like that, just like lines. His foot, same thing, except within the Calidor Sky that we did before, sort of. And as far as the Genestealer arm, of course, start with the contours, the sharp edges, and then we're just going to flow it here and there. We're going to fill in some areas where the light hits and such. This is a bit artsy because I'm not that good with these round things, even though there's a lot more definition on a Genestealer arm, like curvature that's obvious than with a Space Marine arm. Still need some work on it. Then with pure Temple Guard Blue, we're basically going to work up to that, highlight the most obvious areas for the head, some final lines here and there, and some dots on the top of his head, like protrusions, I don't know how to describe it, his toes and stuff as well, to highlight the most prominent parts of his toes, and his arm as well. Basically, like we're doing like 10 to 15% of each piece with Temple Guard Blue. Once that's done, so it doesn't pop as much, so what I do is I take Corvus Black, turn it to a wash, and then I apply it into very specific areas. I try to add shadow. So on the top of his head, where the armor pieces meet, I try to place a layer of the wash there to make it look darker so that it separates the segments. His Genestealer armor, I place it on his elbow joint bone thing that pops out, underside here and there of his arm, and like under his wrist, because the way his wrist works, and his foot as well in some areas. And that's about it. Alright, with Slaanesh Grey, Gorthor Brown, Pallid Witchflesh, Calidor Sky, and Temple Guard Blue, we're going to paint his arms and his foot. I forgot to do his foot on camera. I'd do it later because I completely forgot about it. His right foot and his two arms that are not Genestealerified. Alright, so basically Slaanesh Grey all over. Then we're going to take Gorthor Brown and turn it into a wash and apply it all over. Once that dries naturally, I'm not going to use a hair dryer for this because it's so small. I'm going to take Gorthor Brown and I'm going to apply it directly into like the sharp curves and stuff and the spaces between his fingers and his toes when I do that. The reason is so when the pieces of the model are so small, and for context, his arm is like a fourth of the width of my pinky nail. He's super small, so hard transitions are better for the eye. You don't want to do smooth transitions that much on very small things because you're never going to really notice them. So harsh transitions, the Gorthor Brown is very present there. Then what I'm going to do is going to go back with Slaanesh Grey, make sure you water it down to the point that it's smooth, and then just apply it on the top 80-70% of his arms and stuff. And then I'm going to go mix in some Pallid Witchflesh, and I'm going to do the same thing again, but do around half of his arms, the upper part. And then I'll add a little bit of Pallid Witchflesh on the most prominent areas. Just like a dot here and there. Alright, now once that is done, we're going to take Calidor Sky and we're going to turn it into a wash. So what I noticed is that on the box art, the skin color turns from their pale, terrible skin to bluish, or the armor Genestealer stuff. So we're going to take Calidor Sky, turn it into a glaze, which is basically a wash, but then you take the tip of your brush and touch a paper towel, and then it sucks out all the excess water, so that there's just a little bit of very diluted paint in the brush. And basically I'm going to brush from like a third of their arm into their shoulder joint. And we repeat this until we're satisfied and it covers it in a nice color. Then we're going to go with Temple Guard Blue, and we're going to do the same thing on the most raised parts of their arm. Remember, going from, you touch like near his shoulder and then pull into his shoulder, and that helps pull the paint in the direction you want, and that helps build the color transition. It's not 100% perfect, but then so what I do is I go back with the Slaanesh Grey Pallid Witchflesh mix, and then I somewhat re-add it on the other side as a glaze, pulling backwards, and so the final result is it looks pretty good. This was a back and forth between the blues and the flesh colors to get it right, but it looks good. And now to paint the other super annoying part of the Genestealer cults. Genestealer Purple, Xerxes Purple, and Slaanesh Grey, we're going to paint the Genestealer hand and the ribs that are on their arms. If that makes any sense. Alright, so basically Genestealer Purple all over, obviously. Then Xerxes Purple turned into a wash and applied all over. However, when that dries, you can take the Xerxes Purple and paint the in between the digits directly and stuff to add better shadow. Once that is done, with Genestealer Cult's Purple, I basically repaint 90% of everything. And then once that's done, I take the Slaanesh Grey and I follow the bony parts of the hand. So for the hand, I follow the bony parts, the more raised areas, and I paint that smoothly. Make sure it's watered down well enough that it applies on smooth, but not so watery that it spills everywhere. If you are worried about that, just touch a paper towel with the brush and it'll absorb the excess water. And once that's done, so for the rib parts, I just take, basically because they're so small, dark color and then a hard contrast to a bright color, and I just paint like basically chiclets or dots along those rib things. I make my own ribs. I don't follow GW's things. We'll paint my own because they're too small to really follow accurately. And yeah, and that's what I do, and that is one of the most annoying things to deal with the Genestealer cults. And now with Corvus Black, I decided that the ribbed armor really isn't doing it for me just because of the color and stuff, so I want to darken the ribbed parts of the armor. So I took Corvus Black into a wash and applied on all the ribbed parts. And it helps bring out the brighter parts of the armor. And then with the Army Painter Anti-Shine Matte Varnish and AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish, I mixed the two together in a 1-to-1-ish mix with a bit of water. and then I apply a bunch of coats of this all over that I've painted. I apply 2 coats all over, let it dry. I use a hair dryer for that. Then I apply a 3rd coat on all the parts where I'm 100% sure someone is going to touch it, or if it falls, it's going to hit something. Alright, with Iron Warriors and Duraluminum, we're going to paint the metal. So basically what happens is, the Iron Warriors is a dark base because it's a dark metal. I apply it on everything. The chains, the gun, the staff, everything. It's just a base layer, it doesn't matter. Now with Duraluminum, so I'm going to apply this on the for the gun, the more raised areas of the handle and stuff, so it's obvious. For the staff, I'm going to paint horizontal slashes all throughout it, on all sides. And I'm also going to paint the little Genestealer guy up top, his more raised areas and stuff. If you mess something up, actually what I did later was I added Corvus Black Wash to it and then re-highlighted it with a dry brush, and it came out well. The chain, and just highlight the most raised links. The pipe, highlight that as well, or not pipe, whatever that metal thing around his neck is, and stuff like that. It is just basic. Iron Warrior base and Duralumin on top. I'm not much of a metals person, so I'm not that good at it. Now, unfortunately, I lost the image that shows what the paints I used for the gold parts, but here's basically what I use. I use Retributor Gold, Liberator Gold, Seraph Sepia, and Sycorax Bronze. So basically, Retributor Armor, all over the gold stuff. He has a gold medallion on his left, his bottom parts of his staff thingy as well as the bottom tip, this part up above before the symbols and stuff, and like these horns that are coming out of the side of that little Genestealer up top. Once that's done, we're going to go to Liberator Gold and basically highlight, oh wait, no, Seraph Sepia all over after that. Then we go back with Retributor Gold, re-highlight the most important areas, then Liberator Gold on the edges, the tips and stuff like that, just to bring out the highlight. And Sycorax Bronze on the very tips and stuff as a fine tip highlight and stuff. And it looks fine. It looks okay. I'm not much of a metals person, but this works. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention with the metals is that his brain is held together in a metal cage of what looks like nails. And so don't forget to paint those. I forgot to mention it, but like it's on the video. And done. I did pull a 1-2, skip a few things here and there. Just the gems, just gems. His red gems, just paint gems whatever color. He has like a bunch of dangling baubles on his staff. Just paint those whatever you like. I painted some green, I painted some red. It doesn't really matter because you can figure that out on your own. And so yeah, he came out incredibly well. Surprisingly well. I did not expect to do this well. His base, I just put him on a basic base. So my Genestealer cult army, my personal army, is like they're on like the streets, on the roads. So I use this road material thing from AK. I've shown it in previous videos. Basically, it's like I just put the concrete stuff on there, and it looks fine. He's the main draw. The base doesn't detract from him or anything, so nothing of note there. It's just plain. But it fits in, you can see it's the same texture and stuff. And I never got like, why does every single soldier have to be standing on the edge of the street? So you can see the lines and stuff, but whatever. As far as he goes, all right, weakest part. Probably the brain itself, but that's more of like the colors I chose, but then again, I could not figure that out. All right, strengths. Practically everything else, even the metals aren't bad. They're like neutral. They don't detract, but they're not super great. His armor looks very good, very crisp and clean. And the darker, applying the extra layer of Corvus Black to the ribbed parts was the right idea. It made it pop more by adding more shadow there. His robe is incredible, one of the best I have done in a while. My Terminator Captain is probably the best robe I've ever done, and this is a close second, especially with the colors and this different method of how I layered the colors on first before creating the ribbed horizontal slashes. His Tyranid Chitin, however you want to pronounce it, turned out very well. His Genestealer arm, I did incredible on that. It came out really well. It really pops. His leather gun holster and his leather glove looks great. I don't know what I tapped into, but I made it look really good with the lighting and stuff. And because his fingers and digits and toes are so small, hard contrasting colors there make it pop out better. His arms, his regular arms, the transition between that ugly palish skin and the bluish Genestealer coal thingy, that was a great color glazing transition, looked great. Overall, looks incredible. The stuff I skipped is just basic gems, lenses, and stuff like that. You can solve that on your own. The Genestealer face, I could have made them in the same color as the rest, but I painted it with the same color as the brain because, like, that's fine. Overall, you know what? I did incredibly well. This model looks great, far better than I expect. This is a solid 9 out of 10. Easily a 9 out of 10. It could be a 10 out of 10, but I genuinely don't know what it could be. It's like, I'm beginning to hit that wall of like, not can I paint it a certain way, but like, what does something like this really look like? How can I bring out really the choosing the colors? That's where I'm messing up. In the choosing the colors and stuff, like, I can't, this won't win a tournament, this won't win a gold demon, but it's beyond tabletop. I can't seem to figure out or tap into that thing that can bring it to like a gold demon level, or like that look, that color. I don't know what it is, but I can't seem to visualize that. But I can do incredible above tabletop standard. This looks incredible. This looks great. But my main issue, I guess, is with the overall style and color palette. I can't seem to find that thing that brings it to that. Actually, it's probably just a style thing, because like the Golden Demon stuff is its own style. So I guess I just can't seem to visualize that style. But this looks great. This looks incredible. This will be a fine addition to the corner of my army storage case, because I have no use for this guy at all in my army. Was it lethal hits? Range lethal hits to his entire squad? I mean, okay. Well, actually, that wouldn't be bad if I paired him with a 20-man unit of neophytes with a Primus, giving them reroll to hit, and he gives them lethal hits. I could do quite a number that way. However, they will die super quick and easy. That's why I have a Acolyte Icona War, giving them a 5-up feel no pain, so they just tank the center objective. May or may not be wiped out the next turn anyway, but they give me that 3 points. Yeah, or 5 points. I don't know, depends on the mission. Well, anyway, like the video if you like the video. Comment if you want to comment or ask any question on this. More to come. I'm going to do like 2 more characters before I go back to big squads. Yeah. Alright, and bye.